Hello, hello, and welcome to Spindle TV. I'm your host, Laney Shaughnessy, and back again, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, Blue Night, of course, I'm coming online. The live event starts at 7:15 p.m. How are y'all doing tonight? Hopefully, you're doing well. All right, I look like a hot mess. It has been a crazy, crazy couple of weeks, and I thought tonight I would spend some time with you guys and girls and do some Q&A, questions and answers. Y'all know what that means. And yeah, well, before we do that, let me tell you about my story. I'm hoping the internet will be fine. Tonight, I had to get a new modem. Had a lightning strike in my property, hit right in the middle between my house and my shop, and right where I've got my cable buried that runs out internet and everything. Well, anyway, it traveled up the cable, burn up my router, burn up a couple of bridges, um, burn out a laptop, my CNC laptop, and my CNC control board. So, a little over $1,000 later, got everything back up and running. Did not want to deal with that. And now my microphone is acting up. But hell, I even blew out the speaker on my headphones. I lost the cushion thing. It's one of those crazy days. Or not days. It didn't happen today. It happened over the last couple days, but oh, it's been brutal. So anyway, I hope y'all are having a good week. I hated losing my shop CNC laptop. I had a lot of projects on there, and I was foolish enough not to back any of them up. But luckily, I have my office computer here where I do a lot of my designs, and yeah. Yeah, I have property insurance, Blue Knight, but and that's what they said. Save the receipts and you can claim it with the insurance company, but I haven't tried yet, but I don't think it even meets my deductible. I don't know. I don't even know. But yeah, it sucked. It was a bad couple of days. And now, I just got my new modem set up and the Cox cable company came out. Did a great job. They did good. And stuff. No problems there. They switched out the equipment. There's no charge from them. But it just seems like the internet's a little flakier than I remember. So let me know if I blank out on you or not. Because I know I'm definitely blinking in and out on my um, headphones here because of the simple fact that I broke them. Ripped the ear off. I don't even know where the other ear went to. But yeah, it was a bad day. So tonight we are going to do some Q&A. We're going to talk about some projects and everything, and want to show you my cool new circle center finder that I made on my CNC. Waha! But if you don't have one of these for a circle center finder, make yourself one. It's one of the greatest things in the world. I had to make some plugs, some discs uh, for some turnings and stuff that I'm doing, and I needed to find the center of those bad boys. And I was like, I don't have a good way of finding the center of a circle, so I carved one. uh, but yeah, Troy, I'm gonna take the laptop to uh, I don't think they call it the Geek Squad. That's Best Buy. Whatever Staples is. I like those guys. They've been good with their. They're right across the street from me, literally right behind me. And I'm gonna take it over there and see if they can pull anything off of it. But yeah, it was hectic. And I don't know. You live and learn. Mother Nature, God forbid. So tonight, guys, we're going to be talking Vectric. We're going to be talking Planet CNC. What would you guys like to ask and get to know or get questions or answers for? I'm going to go ahead and open up a um, project folder here. I haven't had a chance because of everything going on. I haven't had a chance to carve the knife handles yet. So my knife is still sitting there naked with no handles. Um, I haven't had a chance to. I've been busy with customers and then dealing with that fiasco. Um, I haven't had a chance to finish up my flag box. I wanted to show you guys the flag box. Last week I could not do a class last week, guys. It was super busy. Hey Terry, how you doing, buddy? But all in all, life has been good. I mean, that was a thing that happens. Material things come and go. But what can you do? I just wanted to share that little experience with you. But yeah, Drew, I'm gonna try to see if I can get some recovery on that hard drive. I haven't done it yet. It just all this just happened literally. I just got the computer. Uh, what's today? Tuesday. I think it was Sunday. Sunday. So I'll take it over to them this week and see what they can do. See if they can pull anything off of it. It'd be cool if they could, because I had some cool projects on there that I designed on that computer and not this one. And yeah, you know. And I have backup. Uh I have a not an external hard drive, but an external Seagate backup drive for on-site storage. And of course, everybody's got Google Drive. I've got that. I've got Dropbox, and then I have the oh, I can never remember the name of my own backup drive. Shit. Now I gotta look it up. It starts with a C. But if you guys and girls have any questions related to Vectric and all, now's the time to ask. Let's see here. Log into my history. Oh, I cleared my history. Carbonite. There's my Carbonite login. For offsite storage, they were good. They've been good so far. Carbonite. I don't know why I can't ever remember that. Kryptonite. I should know that. I'm a Superman fan. Carbonite. But so I have all kinds of redundant, backup, but I never backed up the laptop out in the shop. What was I thinking? I don't know. Yeah, the cloud. Yeah, the cloud. Troy's like with a C. It's the cloud, lady. Yeah, no, carbonite is what I was thinking of. But yeah, that I guess that would be the cloud, right? Starts with a C. Um, but yeah, and it's like a house alarm. It's not any good unless you use it, right? So, uh, we'll put a check mark on the list of, yeah, Laney, you're an idiot. Look, there's my invisible soda can. Cool. All right. Way to start it off, Mike. Mike says, can you go over bringing in clip art from the internet and tracing it? Sure. Um, so there's a lot of different sites and ways to bring things off the internet. I'm a Google fan. Google has some great tools. One of the key things that you want to do when you're searching for images and stuff is I use the keyword vector after everything that I um, look for. So deer vector, horse vector, airplane vector, the keyword vector. And what that does is it filters out all the millions of photos and stuff that you can bring in and work with. And depending on some sites, the craftsman craftsman.com, I think it is, the craftsman.com is a cool site that has free vectors and things like that. You want to be mindful of, I stay away from anything collegiate, colleges, universities, Harley Davidson, football. I don't do any of those type of things. You want to be mindful of the stuff that you're using, especially if you're trying to sell your products and all, copyrighted things and all. I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to get into that topic. But there are things called crafters licenses that you can use to obtain with these different universities. We had a customer of ours that big Purdue fan, and she made some Purdue signs, and Purdue got on to her, and gave her that no, no, don't you do that. And so she went through the proper channels and got a crafter's license, and now she's one of the main Purdue carvers, for Purdue logos and signage and things like that. So do it right, and it'll benefit you. All right, so let's switch over to. Let me share my screen here. Boop. All right. So typically when you are, and let's maximize that. Typically, when you're importing, you're going to either use the import bitmap, because most of the times it's going to be like a JPEG, a PNG. Sometimes you get lucky and find SVGs and things like that. But you'll use the import bitmap folder, either from here or from your file import menu. And let's go over to our downloads folder and stuff. And let me find where's my clipboard? Woohoo. All right. So freepatternsarea.com is a cool site too. Shout out to them. So when you bring an image in, the first thing you've got to do is trace it. And so after you import it in, basically what I like to do is zoom into it so it's front and center and we can see what's happening with it. And then in the software, the trace bitmap tool looks like the bird being traced. And here in a second, I'll change my screen resolution so everything's a little bigger for you guys and girls. But there are two ways to trace an image. Now, the first thing that you'll notice is when you open up the trace bitmap tool, it fades the image here. And we want to, the first thing I recommend my customers to do is take that, go down to the bottom of the tool and turn that fading to none. We want to see the image in its full glory. There are two ways to trace an image: color or photo, or color or black and white. Sorry. And the color trace basically means that it's going to look at the image and all the different shades of colors of all these pixels and things. It's going to lay out up to 16 of the main shades of colors that that it finds in that image. Now we can reduce those shades of colors by sliding our slide bar back and forth. And eventually when we get down to two colors, we end up with black and white, right? So there's two options there. If I'm going to use the color trace, I'm going to use a trace color that's not within my photo. And what my goal is to check off the boxes until I get a nice solid fill color of the image that I'm trying to trace. So my goal is to get a nice solid fill of that red trace color within my image and everything. And once I've got a nice solid fill, I don't want to go too far, because if I go too far, I start picking up noise and trash and things like that. I want to be mindful of that. So, if I go, even further, then I end up losing it, right? The whole thing. So I want to get a good, nice fill trace of my image. And then from there, we can go down and work with the corner fit. It can be loose or tight. This is the lines that get drawn on the inside and outside corners. I'm a big advocate of the default corner fit. Vectric had their act together when they created the program, so that 82% default corner fit is a good corner fit for contoured lines and things. If you're working with block letters and stuff and you need really straight, rigid lines, then go tighter and all. If it's a low resolution image, you want high resolution image, large pixels and things. And if it's a low resolution image, you may have to turn up your noise filter to filter out some of that noise and things. I generally operate, kind of mid range and stuff, 6 or 7 and all. But your default is 2 pixels. And so we'll crank this up to 4, and then we'll click preview, and that will trace the image. Now, there's a couple of little nips right here on the end that we'll clean up here in a minute. But for the most part, a decent tracing, you would click apply, close, and then you'll turn off your bitmap layer and all you'll have is your tracing left behind. So, and you'll see here over here, we got a little bit of a little nub sticking out there. We'll clean that up in node editing. But aside from that, let's turn that back on and undo. There's also the black and white trace within your photo. And basically, it takes the image that you have selected and it converts it to a black and white. Now, again, turn that fading off. Now, in the case of this, there is no colors to trace or to check off. There's just a slide bar that you slide back and forth. And what you're wanting to do is get the best representation of that black and white image, get nice, clean looking lines and things of that black and white, and then come down and repeatedly do the same thing. And I'm going to use the default corner fit. I'll have my noise filter at about 4. Click on preview, then apply and close. And again, turn your bitmap layer off. The same steps, rinse and repeat for that. Now, to take this a little bit further, Mr. Nolan and all, is some images, they're not going to trace completely clean. Therefore, you're going to have to do some node editing. And so in this image, all the way around, I have some node editing to do on these corners of these triangles. They should not be blocked off like that. They should be nice lines and stuff. They should be nice points. They shouldn't be rounded at all. And that's it's a product of the tracing and everything. And you're going to get that regardless of if you're using the black or the color tracing and all. Now, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ungroup this and remove everything that I don't need in here. And then the image can get sized up. But then I'm gonna have to go through and kind of look at this image and see what needs to be cleaned up. And in the case of this, I've got this point here is kind of missing. It's flat. And then the 2 points on the side of this vector are, kind of missing. So that's going to require node editing. In the case of the node editing, I'll start out here and I'll end up deleting these 2 spans, delete that one there and that one there. While I'm in node editing, I'll delete, since I'm kind of working in this area, I'll delete this span as well. A span is a line, arc, or curve between 2 nodes. So I'll remove that. And then I can come back with my extend tool, which is the second icon on the 3rd row of your edit objects tools, the extend tool. And I can come over here and just click, 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 click to extend that, click, click, and to clean that vector up. And I'll end up going through all the way around. And sometimes you're going to have to do that. You're going to have to clean up your lines and things and stuff and all. So you just be aware that in node editing on the keyboard shortcut, but just be aware that there is going to be not everything is always perfect. There are going to be some bits of cleanup, and you can choose whether or not you clean it up or leave it be, right? But the higher the resolution of that image, the better trace quality that you're going to get and everything. As far as that little nibble there, I'm going to go ahead and, I said nibble online, sorry, that little nub there. I'm going to come over and I'll cut the vector probably right about here. I'll just pick 2 random spots and we'll go right about here. And I'll remove that bad segment. And then I'll take this object and rejoin it with a smooth curve. And 90% of the time, it redraws it exactly as I need. The other percentage of the time, I may have to go in and node edit it and do some adjusting, but that one actually came out very well, right? All right, cool. So hopefully that answered a little bit of your questions on bringing an image in and tracing it. Just be sure to always close your tool when you're done. And of course, turn that bitmap layer off because you no longer need that image visible once you're traced, right? And the same goes while we're here. Might as well clean this one up. I'm going to cut the vector here, and I'll just pick another spot over here and cut it. Remove that bad segment, and then select that vector and join with a smooth curve. Now that one threw the curve off. You see it kind of jumped up there, so I will have to go into node editing, and I'm going to adjust that accordingly and clean that up. A little bit thinner here than over there, so let's take this and pull this out a little bit and pull this back. And I'm gonna actually use the keyboard on my arrows on my keyboard and kind of pull that in a little. And there we go. Okay. So little things like that. So hopefully that answered your question, Mr. Nolan. All right, let's go back on up here. Where is where did everybody start here? Want to do something easy? Let's do the circle center finder. Absolutely. I'll draw that out for you here as we're talking and stuff. Let's go ahead and Blue Knight. Let's go in here and delete that. Let's see here. The next question is, Laney, if they are too expensive, let me do it for you. Just pay shipping, services free. If they are too expensive, let me do it for you. Just pay shipping, service free. Oh, the computer thing? Oh man, Blue Knight, thanks for that. I appreciate you that. That's cool. Um, and um, yeah, man, I appreciate that. We'll have to link up on that one. All right, here we go. Let's see here. And I haven't forgot, I'll draw the circle center finder in just a second here. Can you explain the difference of using a flat depth and not using it with a V-bit? Yeah, well, let's first of all, let's understand what the difference between a flat depth is and a cut depth. So Dan, that's a great question because I get a lot of people always calling me saying, hey, my V-carves aren't carving the same depth all the way through. You know, I put in 1/4 of an inch in the flat depth and, you know, some of them are cutting a little lighter, some are cutting down to that 1/4 of an inch and things like that, and they're not understanding exactly. So that's a great question. Before we go any further, let me change my um, display settings for you ladies and gentlemen to make things a little bit bigger in the preview and and all that wonderful stuff. Let's see here. Let's go down and change that to 1280 by 720. Holy cow, that makes things big. All right, let's pop back up here. Woo. All right, now we can see them icons. All right, so let's talk about it. All right, so I want to first explain the difference between cut depths, what you'll see in like profile cuts, pocket cuts, drilling operations, and other tool paths. You're going to see a cut depth. This is a specified depth for that particular cutter operation. You're saying, hey, I want you to cut from 0, top of the material usually, or whatever it is, down to this depth, right? And, you know, that's the cut depth. Well, that is a little bit different, meaning it's not exactly the same. It's not the same as a flat depth and a V-carve. So if you understand a V-carve toolpath, a V-carve toolpath looks at the distance between 2 lines of a vector. And let me get another line in there. And it automatically calculates how deep it needs to cut for those 2 lines to meet at a V at the bottom of the cut based on the angle of the bit. So, you know, if you want shallower cuts, wider angles, deeper cuts, narrower angles, and things like that. So based on the angle of the bit and the distance between the parts, that will determine the length of the cut. So let me put in a center line here. Let me hit the space bar, finish, undo. There we go. I'm just going to draw a line straight across there and up, space bar. All right. And let me get a center point in there. That line looks all jaggedy, and it says 90 degree. That line looks jagged as janky as all that. Let's do that again. Find my center, straight down. That line looks pretty smooth. Okay, so a V-carve toolpath is automatically going to calculate the angle and the depth of cut based on the bit. So let's say I have a 60-degree V bit here. If I was carving with a 90-degree V bit, which would be here and here, I'm going to get different depths of cut based on that bit. And so if I want to set a flat depth, well, what that's going to do is that's going to truncate. And let's get rid of the 90. We'll just work with the 60 here. That's going to truncate that cut. Let's say I want a 1/4 inch flat depth, right? And so it's going to truncate that cut. Now, this flat depth is a limit. So if you just remember that it's a limit, it's not a cut depth, it's a limit. What that means is any part of that design that I'm carving, if whatever parts of that design would normally exceed that 1/4 inch flat depth, then it's going to get limited to that 1/4 inch. It'll get truncated and flattened out at that 1/4 of an inch. But if a design, the smaller, let's say I have smaller vectors or something or closer together vectors, and it's only carving, an 1/8 of an inch or a 16th or 20 thousandths of an inch or whatever, those are going to get V cut to their prospective depth. But any part of that design that would exceed my flat depth of a 1/4 inch is going to get truncated and cut off. So a flat depth is a limit, and it only limits the area of the design that would normally exceed that limit. Hopefully that explains it. Hopefully you'll understand that. So a cut depth will cut exactly to the depth you specify. A flat depth will limit parts of the design that would exceed the flat depth, that exceed that limit. It'll truncate and flatten them off. So tell me, Dan B, if that answered your question. Okay. So if you don't use a flat depth, then it's going to automatically calculate the depth of cut based on the space between the lines of the design. And a good example is, with letters and things. So let's grab a font here. Oh, why is my text box not opening? Okay, there we go. Let's go with the letter B, and let's do a true type font. And let's make that a little bit bigger. Okay. So the space between the lines in these areas here are going to be a shallower cut. The space in these lines are going to be a deeper cut. So that's how you get those different depths of cut when you're doing a V carve, because the space between the lines indicate, and the angle of the V bit is going to indicate the depth of the cut, how deep it needs to cut for those lines to meet at a V at the bottom of the cut. And if I were to limit this cut to, let's say, 1/8 of an inch, well, any part of that design that will not exceed that 1/8 of an inch, like probably these narrow areas here, they're going to just carve to whatever depth they would normally carve to. But then the rest of my design would get limited to that that flat depth area. And if I decide to set a flat depth of whatever it may be, then if the depth does not warrant it being flattened out, then it's just going to carve to its full depth. So let's get into here. And so if we look at this, oh, not that way. There you go, boy. Let's get in here. So up at the top of my B here, it's going to cut to its normal depth, that nice B cut and everything. But in these areas here, they would have exceeded that 1/4 of an inch, so they're going to get limited out. But this area here, it's going to cut to its normal depth because it doesn't exceed or reach that 1/4 of an inch flat depth. But this area does here, so it's going to get flattened out, and so on and so forth. So a lot of people think, man, why isn't it carving all to the same depth? Or some letters are carving shallower than others, and I put in a 1/4 of an inch. Well, it's not a cut depth, it's a limit. Okay. And that's the last I'll harp on that one. But yeah. So these do not reach the limit, so they're going to V-cut these areas here. This area does reach the limit, so it'll get flattened out at that 1/4 of an inch, that area there and that area there. And yeah, there you have it, right? So that is a flat depth. And it's a limit, not a cut depth, and you can use it. If you use it, you're just going to flatten off and you're limiting certain parts of that design to whatever flat area that you determine. Cool. And also, if you're doing raised effect, if you're kind of doing a raised effect, let's say we have a boundary around this and we want that letter to be raised, then you absolutely are going to use a flat depth when you're carving this, because the space between this outer line and this line here is wide, right? So we got to flatten this area out here we got to limit that cut. And so if I limit this, let's say to 1/8 of an inch, then that's essentially going to be the cut depth of my pocket. And then whatever part of the design that, which is whatever part, when I say whatever part of the design that's going to reach 1/8 of an inch, all of this design is going to reach 1/8 of an inch. So it will flatten or limit everything to that. And that's how we get that, um, that raised effect. And of course, I didn't use a flat area clearance tool, so you'll see the tool marks, but all those areas between those two lines, the line of my border and the line of my letters, is getting limited to that 1/8 of an inch. And then my big letters getting raised up. Yeah. And that's how we get that raised effect. So that's kind of the main uses for the flat depth when you're wanting to do that raised effect, or if you're limiting your cut to a certain depth of cut. Cool. Glad that, I hope that helped. All right, let's delete that. And let's get back to here. Okay, let's see what here. Now, Dan, I hope that answered your question. All right, let's talk about the circle center finder. Let's kind of draw out the circle center finder here. So on my circle center finder, pop back over here a second. My circle, I wanted to have a big enough circle that with the two little dowels in there, that when it, and I'll use a CD at the, and all, but when it wraps around that circle and all, let me come up here. Get in there, sit in there. Oh man, I'm backwards with my camera. That there was enough of a span that I could, get some nice seating and everything. And there's my circle center finder right down the middle. Look at that. So, the size of your circle center finder and also the length of it is going to determine by what size circles you're going to be tracing. I believe my overall lengths on this, I think I went with, 8.5 inches overall length and everything. And I just went with a 2 3/4 inch diameter circle, right? So if we were to replicate that, let's go with a 2.75. And that number was not specific to anything. It was just the size that I needed to be able to use and everything. And that wonderful jazz. All right. So overall length, let's go from the center here, snap to the center, and I'm going to come out. And I'm not going to be able to get my 9 inches out of that. So we'll go 8 inches, which is fine. Space bar to finish. And then basically, I wanted a little bit of a small radius on the, where's my camera at? On the tip there. There's a small little, a little bit of a radius on the tip there. And so we'll go with a 1/4 of an inch, 0.25, and I'll snap that bad boy there. All right, right. All right, so it's going to end up being like an 1/8 inch radius because it's a 1/4 inch diameter. But if we take our line tool here, I can click on here. I didn't want to snap to there. I wanted to snap to the side there, buddy. So undo. Let's try that again. Bam. There we go. And if I hover my mouse over here, I can hit the letter T on my keyboard and it'll snap to the tangents, and then I can use my space bar and all. And then it's going to be a matter of cleaning things up. But before I do that, I need to extend my line from here to here. And then I can come in, use my trim tool. Oh, shit. Ladies and gentlemen, we're an idiot. All right, so let's let me undo that real quick. You guys couldn't see anything that I was just doing. So start over again. We'll go with our 1/4 inch. I'll just drop that down there. That's good. And then 2 3/4, 2.75. We'll pop that down there. Oh, I was so close to being right on the edge of the board. Let's move that over a little bit. All right, we're going to take a straight line from the center of this one to the center of that one. Space bar to finish. And then I'm going to snap to the edge of this circle here. I'm going to hover over this circle, not click anything, and just hit the letter T on my keyboard. It'll snap to the tangent lines, and then space bar to finish. And now I can come in and do my cleanup. I'll take my scissor tool there and, clean this up. Wow, wow. I got to extend my line. Hold on a second. Extend tool from there to there, from there to there. And I can trim that up. And yeah, there's you a circle center finder. Now, as far as the placement of the two dowels, I used 3/8 inch dowels for mine. Actually, they were 3/8, right? Hold on a second, let me measure. 7/16. 7/16 inch dowels. Which 7/16. So basically, the placement really doesn't matter. You want them centered, or kind of, centered within this circle, so they wrap well. So we'll back off, center right about there and there. And I'm going to take these two objects. I'm going to group them together for a minute. I'm going to take this object here, and I'm going to use my alignment tool and align up and down, kind of get them center spaced. And then I'm gonna one of the crucial things is making sure they're aligned with each other. So let's ungroup that. I'll hit letter U on the keyboard, and I'll select this one first. That's fine. This one second, and I'll use that alignment tool and align left to right to get those into alignment together. And yeah. Now you can decide on, as far as the outer profile, you can decide if you want a larger radius or what shape you want. If you don't want it such a dramatic angle here, what's the main important thing is this line right here. That's your center line and stuff. Now, one of the key things is you don't leave this circle here, right? We want a nice 90-degree line here. So at the center of my circle, at the center of my circle, let's take a line here and find the center of my circle and come straight up. Space bar to finish. We'll draw it out here too. Kind of connect those two areas together. We'll take our scissors, trim that up. And then right here on this corner, I want my router bit, when it comes to turn that corner, I want to create a little relief for it. So I get a nice 90-degree corner with no radius right here. So I'm just going to use the fillet tool. And I used an 1/8 inch bit to cut this out, an 1/8 inch end mill. So I'll have a 1/16 of an inch radius. Not too many decimal points. And I'm just going to put a little fillet, dog bone fillet right there. and that will allow the bit to come. It'll give a place for the bit to escape, and then it can make that 90-degree cut. And that would be your circle center finder. So if we compared, let me get back over here. So if we look close, oh, here, what would be the better? Here, let me see here. Where's my focal point? All right, so you can see that little fillet. Let me get something behind it. Either my camera's blurry or my eyes are blurry. One of the two. Let me find my focal point again. Focus, dude. Focus. Why is my camera not focusing for me? But as we zoom in nice and close, a little closer, you can see that little dog bone fillet right there where the router bit has a little place to escape. Wonderful. And, you know, just, the placement of the dowels. Really, I just come off the center line a little bit, right? So I want the dowels to come off the center line a little bit, have a little bit of meat from here to the edge of the dowel and all. And then just make sure those dowels are centered and make sure they're aligned with each other. We don't want to, anything kind of skewing it off, like it's, throwing it off. But it's a very simple tool. It takes less than a minute to cut out. And glue in the dowels. I used, what did I use? Bloodwood and some cheap ass birch dowels from Lowe's, right? So, but just a little scrap piece I used. This piece of scrap wood, I believe it's a 1/4 of an inch thick. Yeah, 1/4 inch thick. So it's just a nice little tool to have in the shop. I love making little DIY tools and stuff. I got a big circle cutter for my other router that was made and all, but it's really straightforward for creating a nice little circle center finder. And it's great for finding the center of circles. All right, all right, all right. But yeah, pretty straightforward. Draw your whatever diameter circle. Now, of course, the larger disc, like if you're going to be, cutting slabs that are, live edge and they're somewhat rounded or whatever, or they have some kind of round edge where you're trying to find the center of them. Like some people, bar stool tops. People go to Lowe's and buy those big bar stool tops and things to carve signage out of or things like that. And you need to mark the center. You can make these things in different sizes and different lengths and stuff, and they're great. They're good to have around. I have this one size. I work with kind of smaller circles and all, but absolutely because literally it takes just a minute or two to cut out. If I ever needed one for a larger circle, it wouldn't take me very long to throw a piece of wood on the table and knock it out. Um, so yeah, that was my circle center finder, Mr. Knight. So hopefully that'll work. Ronald Samansky says, "Hi all, Laney. I was carving a model out of maple with a brand new 1/4 inch end mill bit, but by the time my project finished, the tip of the bit was black. Was my router speed too fast or my feed rate too slow?" Well, it's kind of a combination, Ron. It's the chip load. So basically, what was happening is the tip of your bit, number one, cut depth is if just the tip is getting all, you might want to kind of increase the cut depth slightly, but the number of flutes uh, and the feed rate and the spindle speed, these three things come into factor for creating chip load. You want nice sized chips flying away as it's carving and everything. And with those chips flying away from that bit, so is the heat. The chips are pulling that heat with them. And if you really examined the chips that came off your CNC machine, you would see that they're slightly discolored because they've kind of almost they've heated up, right? And so they've discolored, like just as like if you were burning a piece of wood or something, but not so much that they're gristle, right? But they just discolor slightly because of the heat that they're carrying with them. If you've got fine dust coming off of your machine, then your chip load isn't set correctly for that bit, and therefore heat is not allowed to escape, so it just concentrates right on there, and then your bit starts to discolor, your wood starts to burn, and things like that. So it's going to be a matter of you want to number one, increase your feed rate. Your bit might be sitting in one area too long. It's moving too slowly. Um, and so you want to increase your feed rate slightly so that it's not concentrating in one area for too long period of time. But also you want your RPMs, you want to slow them down so that the gullets, depending on the diameter, there's a 1/4 inch end mill, so pretty decent sized gullets on those flutes. You want them to be able to, remove nice chips. And if it's moving too fast, then it's making fine dust. If that bit's spinning too fast, it's not able to really shear those nice chips. So you want to bring those speeds down a little bit. I'm not sure exactly what you were running or what machine that you're running on, but as a standard, kind of a basic minimum, or whatever for a 1/4 inch end mill, 55 inches a minute feed rate, about 22,500 inches a minute for the RPMs is kind of a default. But then from there, you're going to increase your feed rate and decrease your spindle speed until you get a nice looking chip coming off of that table, off of that piece of material. You're going to uh, once you find that, if you go too far, if you're going too fast, then the cut will start to deteriorate. So if you start increasing your feed rate and the cut, somewhat starts to improve, but then it starts to deteriorate, then back it off a little bit. Same thing with the RPMs. If you bring that down and you get too slow, it's going to deteriorate that cut. It's not going to shear. It's going to more tear through. You got to bring that RPM all right. So you got to find that happy, medium with those nice chips coming off. And you don't want chatter. If your CNC is chattering when it's cutting, the bit just can't keep up with the feed rate, right? So you're going too fast, and the bit's not spinning fast enough to clear that material and all. So it's kind of it's a dance, it's a waltz, right, between the feed rate and all. And understand that the number of flutes is very important as well too. So 2 flute bit, I would probably run at 22,500 inches a minute. A 4 flute bit, I'd be running around 12,000 inches a minute. I'd be cutting that in half. So but I would start out, for me, I start out around 55 with feed rate and RPM of 22.5. And then from there, I'm going to increase my feed rate, slow down my spindle speed until I get that nice chip load and all. So here we go. Hopefully that answered your question, Ron. Laney, is it possible to do a video on how to make a family monogram? Sure. It's absolutely possible to do. Now, if you're talking about like a coat of arms type of thing, because I think who was it that just popped down? Blue Knight says, "I'd love to see how to make a family crest." Right, so a family crest, a coat of arms, and all that stuff. That's one thing. But if you're talking about a monogram, like a monogram initial, let's change some things up here. Let's go into our job size here, and let's increase things a bit. Let's go 24 by 24 by 3/4. 0.75. Click OK. Let's get rid of our circle center finder. I think you guys and girls kind of get the gist of that. Pretty straightforward. The center of your circle is where your lines are going to meet, right? These two lines, and then you're going to put a little fillet there, right? That's the magic of it all. And then how wide you want your tip determines the radius of that, that curve right there, right? So, yeah. All right. I think we got that. All right. Let's start here, and I'll use a ellipse. And let's say that we come in here and throw an ellipse in here. Let's offset that inward by half inch. Let's go 1 inch. 1 inch. Alrighty. Wonderful. All right, now I'm going to import a vector into the design, and it's been a while, so let me see if I can find the correct location for the vector. So it's in my backup drive. All right, there it is. All right, so let's find a cool letter here. What would be a cool letter? Oh, we'll go with the W. Import. All right, so there's my W there. All right, let's size that bad boy up. Hold on to your horses. Okay, not that big. Let's size that down some. Move that over here. Let me change my ellipse a little bit. Let's hold down the shift key, scale that up a little bit and out a little bit. Something like that. So whether you're talking a family monogram to where it would be something like this, or a family crest, coat of arms, that's a little bit more involved, especially if you're doing modeling versus V carving that coat of arms, then that would require a spiral. But a family monogram, let's say that I'm going to draw a rectangle right through here. Let me pull this out just a little bit. All right, so let's see here. What's a good sorry if my audio blinks out on you guys. Let's offset this rectangle inward. Let's go, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch. Oop, not that one, you silly goose. The rectangle. There we go. Yeah, that'll let's go 3/8. 0.375. All right, let's take these two rectangles here and let's make that just a little bit taller. I'm going to hold down my shift key and kind of pull that up a bit. Right, something like that. All right, so let's say that the last name is, okay, let's close one of these. We don't need both of these windows open so you guys can see things. All right, let's see here. Watsons, right? Waltons, right? Let's do the Waltons. Waltons, right? The Waltons. All right, cool. Let's get the Waltons in here. And what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to close that. And I'm going to undo that because I'm going to actually use this rectangle right here to draw that name. So I'm going to use the draw vectors, draw within a vector box, the text. And so I want to use that vector box as the boundary. So that way when I type in the, and I might be going off the rails here, guys. This might not even be answering any of the questions that you were referring to, but hey, what the heck. Let's see. Pick a letter, any letter. We'll use the, I'll use Times New Roman. That's fine. We'll go bold, and I want no boundaries, so I want to stretch it out to there. And then I want to extend. I want no boundaries, and I want to stretch my characters vertically and horizontally on that tool so that it extends out, completely to that rectangle. And then where the magic takes place, I want my top line here and my bottom line, I want those to overlap ever so slightly on my letters. So I have a choice. I can either, stretch my letters or move my box. I'll just stretch my letters up a little bit. So I'm going to stretch them up to where the just pass that top line right there in that rectangle. And I know the W behind here. Let's move the W for a minute. Hmm. And then down here on my letters, let's pull them down. I just want a slight bit of overlap right there, on that inside box. All right, and I'm going to pull my letters inward, and I'm not holding the shift key there. There we go. I'm going to pull the letters inward slightly, right about there. That looks fine and dandy. All right, so if I use my letters as a boundary, my text as a boundary here, and I take and want to clear this rectangle from within inside of that boundary right there, then what's going to happen is when it redraws the rectangle, it's going to redraw this rectangle around these letters. It's a magical thing. So I'm going to use the subtract or the trim tool here, not the subtract, the trim tool. And I want to select my rectangle first and my text last. Hold down that shift key. I got a bad habit of hitting the caps lock key. I want to select that text last, and that makes my text the boundary. And if I clear inside of that boundary, it will redraw those vectors around that text there. And if I came in here and then deleted the text, what do we have? We have an outline of the Waltons, right? Pretty snazzy, slick stuff there. Then from there, I can take my interactive trim tool and make this all part of the boundary. So we'll clear away this area here, that, and that kind of connects those in over there. Clear this away here, trim that, and that. Righto, righto. And then as far as this goes, I don't need this little outside ledge here or that little outside ledge. Let's look over here. Do I need anything? Yeah, that's all good there. So now I have kind of created this little center medallion. Now let's get my W back aligned center to my material. Ooh, in place. And I'm actually going to drop it down ever so slightly so it's just off center. I want to bump it down to where there's a slight bit of overlap here, not much, just so all four of my Vine monogram letters can flow in there and stuff. And once again, I'll take my trim tool and kind of connect them to the border. And again, I might be going off the rails. This might not even be anywhere near close to what someone was talking about as far as a family monogram or what have you, but we're getting there. And now I need the letters here or the letter here to basically be connected to this boundary. Basically, I need to get rid of everything on the inside of this boundary here. So I very easily can do that with the trim tool, right? We can just kind of connect these things together. And basically, I'm just going to take my scissors and clean this up. And make sure you don't miss any of your little dashes and things like that and all that wonderful stuff. But right here in the middle, we'll get rid of these lines here in the middle of that one, get rid of those lines. And then, just work your way down. Make sure you get rid of your vector lines, all that nice jazz. Don't leave any stragglers up here uh, and stuff. And a couple of more lines. Let's clear that out. Get rid of, oh, don't do that. Let's come up here and trim, 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 and then get rid of that line, and then these two little stragglers here. Righto. Let's see if I missed any. No. All right. And so I did miss something. Whoa. No, that's correct. The T just looks a little funky, right? Because it's missing that top part of there. So there's the Waltons, right? So as far as a family monogram, if that's what you're referring to, there's, that's kind of a quick and dirty look at, making one and things. And those Vine monogram fonts, that's what this here is. You can find those online places like Etsy. Etsy has some great Vine monogram fonts and stuff, and all about $7, for the files, and they're all vectorized SVGs. And I was your uncle, right? So with a cut like this would be a profile cut. So we'll select all of that. It'd be a profile toolpath. And I got small, tight areas in here, so I want to use a small diameter bit. The smaller the diameter of the bit, the better results I'm going to get in these letters and everything. And of course, this wouldn't be, I've got this set up for a 3/4 inch board, right? But it would be, most likely cut out of, 1/2 inch or something, along that line. It would not too thick, right? Because too thick, it looks bulky and stuff. But I'm going to, I'll use an 1/8 inch end mill for this. My go-tos would be either an 1/8 or a 16th inch end mill for monogram letters and stuff like that. I want to get really tight in there, but I got to make sure that my material is my bit can exceed the thickness of my material, right? And my 16th inch end mill only has a maximum cut depth of a 1/2 an inch. Where my 1/8 inch end mill has a maximum cut depth of 1 in 3/32. So if I were to calculate this cut, I got one open vector, so there's one that I did not close up. Let me figure out where he is, or she, whatever it is that it is. Select all open vectors. All right, notice that it doesn't show me right away, right? I can see it here visually, but you might not be able to. But if I zoom to the selected object, because I just told the software to select it, it's going to zoom me right into that vector. And that's just that line right there that I need to delete, right? So tell it to select the open vectors. And if you don't see it on the screen, zoom into that selected object and boom, right? So, preview that visible toolpath. And I didn't add any tabs to this. This is just for preview purposes only. But I don't know. Maybe that was informative for you guys. Maybe that wasn't. Maybe I went off the rails completely on that. But a family crest, completely different, process, on laying out that. And again, would you lay it out as a V carve? Would you lay it out as a 3D model? If you're going to be doing modeling, it would require a spire. If you're going to do V carve, hey, no problem. You can do it in all three. But you want to kind of, figure that out. And then of course you want to find your family crest and try to find a good reference source of it, an image and all. So Edward, as far as a family monogram, not sure if that's what you were referring to, but I think monogram letters when someone says monogram, but you might have been thinking of a monogram, like a symbol or something that you would see on a ring or a crest or something or what have you. But that was kind of my interpretation of it. So let me know if I was wrong. Um, and all that. And let's see here. Edward says, okay, so I'm reading now here. A large letter for your last name with your surname in the middle with a different font running left, right, top of the, on top of the large letter. Well, there you go. I think I nailed that one right on the head without even reading that comment. Did he not just say a large letter with the last surname running across the top of the letter? Did I not nail that, ladies and gentlemen? Um, I'm going to double click and let's get rid of all these waste areas here and see how our monogram. Let's get Edward. That was funny. Let's get rid of these waste areas. Whoa, dadgummit. Ah, don't double click. And there's no undo button on the undo delete, right? Right. So as we're continue talking, we'll run that again. Watch where you're clicking, because it'll delete the things you don't want to delete. You want to delete the waste. All right, so Ronnie Probert. Hey, Laney, I'm creating an oval sign. I have cut the I have cut the wording cut. Do I need to go back to the center to zero out? Can I go to the end of the board to zero off? This is a great question. So you're talking about your Z0 position for, your bit changes, Ronnie. And a lot of people really get this one wrong. They have a hard time understanding. So let's say that my job is designed to start X, Y, Z. X, Y is center. Is the center of the board. That's where I'm going to bring the center of my bit. And I'm going to zero out my X and Y. But if we were to look at the job setup is for the material surface to be the Z0 or the machine bed to be the Z0, whichever one of the two options you choose. In this case, I'm going to refer to the material surface. So that means you can touch your Z off anywhere on your board. So if you do a bit change, it carves that first part of that design. It's going to come back home to XY0. And it's going to, stop with the Z height of, whatever your default home start position is, 0.8. And that's your kind of your safe Z position that it returns to. From there, you can move that router anywhere that you need to move. Take that bit out, put your next bit in, and anywhere on the top of the material that has not been carved away, you're going to set your Z. So it does not have to be in the center where you start from. It's the material surface is your Z0. All right, that means all of the material surface. Because there's going to be many times that your center gets milled away, right? And there is no center there left to touch off to. And the one crucial thing that you do not want to do is you do not want to reset your X and Y on a tool change. Your X and Y is set at the beginning of the job. You touch off your Z for that first tool. You run that first profile or, that first tool path. It comes back home. You take that bit out. You put the next bit in. You only touch off and set your Z. You leave X and Y alone. So even if you move over here and touch your Z off, you don't even have to bring the machine back home before you hit start on the job, because that is the first line of G code. Let's open up a toolpath G code here. Dun, 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 dun. Let's see, what do I got for, have I saved any toolpaths lately? Documents. Pop, 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 pop. Let's open this up in Notepad. And never mind, that's a laser cut. Well, that's fine. Even on the, well, let's no, I don't want to confuse you, but it still does the same thing. But let me find something that's not a laser cut. Sample. Is this one a V-bit? I believe it is. There we go. Okay. So if we look at the toolpath, oh, damn, that's a laser cut too. Anyway, hold on a second. Why do I have so many laser cuts going on here? Robert, let's see what old Robert's got going on. There's a V-bit. All right. So the first line of G code when you hit start is going to raise the Z up to a safe Z height. And then the next immediate line is it's going to check to make sure it's at home, XY0. If it's not, it's going to return home. Once it returns to that home position, then it will turn your router or spindle on. If it's a spindle, it'll ramp it up to your spindle speed. And then it's going to move and, to its first location and then come down and start carving. So the very first thing it does when you hit start is it raises up to a safe Z height and then it goes home. before it turns the router on. So even if you've touched off on the far corner of the board to set that Z, you don't have to bring it back home before you hit start. You can just load your next file, hit start, because the first thing it's going to do is raise the Z up to a safe height, come back home, then it's going to turn the router on, then it's going to move over to its first location and then make the cut, right? So, and let me see if I can do this time without deleting the parts that I don't want to delete and everything. So Ronnie Probert, I hope that answered your question. You can move anywhere on your surface material, because that, in your job setup, your Z0 position is your material surface or your machine bed. So that means anywhere on your wasteboard if you got a wasteboard, or anywhere on your machine bed if you got a machine bed, or anywhere on your material surface, right? Okie dokie. All right, let's get back. Fark. All right, you guys saw what that looked like, right? We don't need to do that again. That was crazy. I'm sitting there. I opened up that tool and it reset everything. All right. Here, let's make it quicker so it's not so long while I'm talking. Toolpath, preview simulation quality. We're going to turn that down to standard. We're going to crank that toolpath out with a low resolution. So, Ronnie, hopefully that answered your question regarding, do you have to reset the 0 on the XYZ? No, you can reset it, the Z0 on anywhere on the top surface of your board. All right, Edward, Blue Knight, I saw yours and it's amazing. Can you jump in and let Laney know how you made yours, right? Right. And then Peter, hey, Laney and all. I've just come home and I heard you talking. I left my computer on when I left this morning. I recognized that Southern draw immediately, 12 o'clock in New Zealand. Hey, Peter, welcome from New Zealand. I appreciate you, bud. Thanks for dropping in. Southern draw. I talk normal. What are you talking about? Oh my goodness. Howdy, y'all. Ewans. All right, let's see here. Let's see here. I'm looking at all right, how would you clamp down a project like the Monogram, tape, vacuumed, table due to small pieces, or would you pocket cut the small pieces? Well, mostly you're referring to, like, would you add tabs? Would I add tabs or anything like that to the bar? And also, how would you clamp it? First of all, on my large piece here, I would have most likely, 4 tabs to hold that into place. So that way, when it does cut free on that final profile cut, that it doesn't cut loose and everything. On my larger pieces here, I would most likely add a couple of tabs to hold them into place, because they have a tendency to shift. And if they get shifted because they're so big, the bit most likely wouldn't be able to throw them out, and they could bind and cause that bit to snap, right? And also, I would probably throw a couple of tabs on the bigger parts, but the smaller parts, I just profile cut them, and they'll typically, when they get cut out, they'll typically fly out and everything, and I'm not too overly concerned about them. So I do not add tabs on these smaller parts that you see me kind of removing in these areas here. But how would you clamp it? I'm an advocate of double-sided tape. I like two-sided tape. I'd probably, for this one, I'd probably have 2 clamps. I use 2 clamps or so. I have my cam clamps on my CNC, so I can throw 2 cam clamps on one side and one on the back, and it pushes up against the fence. But two-sided tape would be a good option. Don't coat the whole thing with 100 pieces of two-sided tape. Lord of mercy. But a couple of strips that kind of go around the main areas, like definitely like if you're going to use two-sided tape, definitely a strip running down the middle, right? Because that'll catch all these smaller parts and hold them in place and all. But on your larger pieces, I kind of want to, give you the advice to throw a couple of tabs in there. Not a whole lot. You don't need a million of them. One or two here or there would be a good option. But um, the uh, uh, two-sided tape, hot glue is a good option. 4 dots, little dots will do you and hold it down. But again, the main thing that you're talking about, Harvey, is so the parts don't come flying out. And would you pocket the parts? No, I wouldn't waste that kind of time. It's a profile cut all day long. And the smaller pieces, they're going to end up, they're going to be so small, they'll just end up flying out. The larger pieces that have a tendency they're not going to lift out, they're going to bind. So I'm going to throw a couple of tabs on those larger areas, not too many. I'm not going to go crazy with tabs, but just enough to keep them stationary while they're getting cut out. And then I can, cut those tabs, sand them down and all that stuff. But I would not want to tab the inside here, and I usually don't. But two-sided tape is a good option, a strip here, and definitely a strip right down the middle, right? Because that's where all the little parts are and things like that. But that would be a good option as well. Whether it be a two-sided, like a carpet tape, like the Sure tape from Lowe's, or it could be the painter's tape and CA glue that people use, right? Where they use painter's tape and CA glue and all, which is a decent method as well. But I'm not too concerned about the smaller parts. It's the big parts that I worry about binding up, moving, shifting, and binding. Getting trapped in their potential crevice. And getting shifted slightly, and then all of a sudden pinching my bit, jamming it in there, and possibly breaking my tool. Right. So because I'm using a small diameter bit, like a 16th inch end mill or an 1/8 inch end mill, and a very fragile tool. And also, I would definitely tab them. And hopefully, Harvey, that answered your question. Edward, will the Q&A be available after the live Q&A? Yeah, absolutely. All videos that are on Spindle TV, they're live, generally on Tuesday nights. We missed last week, but generally Tuesday nights at 7:15 p.m. And as soon as the broadcast ends, that video is live on the Spindle TV YouTube channel that you can come back and watch over and over again. So for sure. Oh yeah, Big Fish. That might be the guy you're talking about, Cecil and Ed, with the Monogram stuff. But I'll have to look up some of the things that he does. But hopefully, I don't know if that got you where you want to be, but hopefully that kind of got you. Now, if you're talking about a V carve monogram where the text on top of text, like Walton's would be on top of the letter W, and you were V carving that monogram, that would be a text on text, and we can do a tutorial on that sometime. Pretty cool method. Let's see here. Michael Bell. Laney, when deleting waste material in the 3D view, if you accidentally delete something, use undo last to get it back. Now, hold on a second, Michael. Hold on a second. You're talking about the undo button here? Like undo delete? All right. Now, remember, I just deleted all these parts, right? And if I hit undo delete, that's not undoing. Oh, wait, undo last. How come I've never seen that button before? Michael, you're a genius. Hold on a second. Let's see here. Undo last. Look at that. It puts it back. Oh, Michael, you're the man. Why the hell have I not? I'm so reset preview. I've never really looked at that button. Undo last. That's great, Michael. Thank you. Look at there. 5 years, ladies and gentlemen. I've never paid attention to that button. Wow. Going on 6. Undo last is great. So it undid the last thing that I did in there. So if I accidentally, deleted something that I didn't, oh no, undo last. Look at that. Slick. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you, man. Okay. That's cool. Very cool. See there? I'm even learning something on the Q&A. All right, let's see here. How do you decide which bit to use when you V-carve something? And Landis, that's a great question. A lot of people struggle with what bit would I use? And so I actually did, Landis, just something else that you can refer back to. A couple of weeks back, I did a video on this exact topic: how to choose. What bit do I use? And it talks the first 15 to 20 minutes of it is discussing like V bits and everything. And so, what's going to determine what bit that I use is, let's say on this design here, that let's say I was V carving it and all. I'm only carving it out of, let's say, 3/4 inch material. Well, these wide areas here, and let's pull your up there. These wide areas here, if I were using a 60-degree V bit, they'd absolutely want to, the cut depth would be so much that it would want to cut through the material right at that peak here. If I was using a 22-degree, absolutely. A 90-degree, would be pushing it. I'd probably be cutting deep still, but 120-degree V bit, I'd get a nice shallow cut, right? So if I wanted a nice V cut on this, and I didn't want to add a flat depth, I didn't want to limit that cut anywhere, then my angle is going to get wider, right? So if I went to a V-carve this tool path and I don't want any flat depth, and let's say I'm using my 60-degree V bit here, which I believe that's my 60, it is. If I go to calculate this, I'm going to get I might not get a warning. Yeah, there we go. It's going to require, 2 inches of material to cut through to V-carve this. And if we look at this, let's yeah. In these heavily blue areas, especially here, let's reset this preview and preview that cut. Typically, right. All right, you see that shallow cut that's happening right there? I'm going to stop that. Why? And I was wondering to myself, why is that doing that? And it's because of this imported tool right here. I chose that tool down here from the list that came from Vectric or whatever, and it's not carving properly. So what do we got here? It is carving properly. What the hell? It shouldn't be flattening those areas out like that. Oh, this is a 24-inch by 24-inch board. Never mind, I'm an idiot. I thought this was a smaller. I'm like, why is it carving like that? I forgot I made my board like 24 by 24. So yeah, the 60-degree feedback does have to clear out some of those areas. But in those areas, it's going to require, especially right here in the V, it's going to require about 2 inches of depth to cut through. So you can see absolutely where everything is cutting through, right? So we would have to limit that. But if I didn't want to limit that cut, and I wanted a nice V cut, but I didn't want to limit that cut, then my V bit would have to be wider, right? I'd have to use a wider diameter V bit. And in the case of this, we'll go with a 90-degree 1.25" diameter bit. That should do it. Either that or I'll need to go to my 120-degree V bit. Let's use the 120-degree V bit. 1.25", 120-degree V bit. Let's calculate that. No warning popped up, right? Preview that selected toolpath, and it's going to cut to a respectable depth for the design and things. And this is not the raised effect I was talking about, Ed. As far as the monogram, this is just an example of text on text. But So that 120-degree V-bit, because of the angle of the bit, required a shorter depth of cut. It took less depth to cut to that V shape that we talked about earlier in this class and things, and therefore, I'm not cutting through the material. So choosing how to choose your bit or what bit to choose, it's really going to be design based. What is your ultimate goal? If I'm using a 60-degree V bit on small letters, I might not get enough depth at all, where there's no real definition in that cut. So then that's going to make me change from a 60 to a 22-degree V bit, or an 11-degree or 30-degree, a smaller diameter bit. So I get a little bit deeper cut and more definition, right? So it's really kind of based on the design. And I know that was a roundabout way of what bit do you choose, but basically my 60-degree V bit was cutting through the material. Therefore, I needed to increase the angle of that cutter to maintain being able to get a V cut instead of having to limit the cut. So I had to increase that to 120-degree V bit. And even at that 120-degree V bit in my main areas here, I'm still cutting down to 5/8 of an inch deep, right? So I'm almost punching through my 3/4 board, even with that 120-degree V bit. So hopefully that somewhat answers your question, Landis. But it's kind of going to be based on what your end result, what you want it to look like, and what is required. My go-to bit for all of my V carvings is a 60-degree V bit. Very rarely do I use a 90-degree. On occasion, I use a 20-degree because I'm working with smaller fonts and all. But my go-to is a 60-degree. If I have to, if I'm working with a big design like this where there's wide lines and everything, and I want a decent depth of cut, but I want that nice V prism cut and everything, especially if I'm carving in like acrylic and stuff like that, and all, with large letters and all for edge lit acrylic signs, then my 120-degree V bit's going to be my go-to, for those. So I don't know if that helped, but all right. William says, when you're in node editing mode, how do you add handles to a point that doesn't have any? Well, let's see here. So if we go into node editing, um, let's find a node that doesn't have any handles. When you're trying to add handles, William, that is called smoothing. So if I right click on this, we can smooth that point, and then it will convert that and add the handles so you can, address it and everything. Okay. And if a point had handles on it, let's say only one side, like this one is only, adjusting one side of the curve. If I needed to smooth that out to where it's adjusting kind of both sides, I could smooth that even more and then get that second handle and, you know, uh, tighten things up or whatever the case may be. Um, if I wanted to get rid of the handles, I would just turn off the smoothing. Okay. And it doesn't get rid of the handles, but it makes it a little bit more rigid. Or I would ultimately change it, to a line, or an object and everything to get rid of those handles. And then I would start, back again, whatever the case may be, change it to a Bezier curve, where that'll give me one handle, on that side. But if I come over and smooth the point out again, now I got my two handles. So hopefully that answered your question. Smoothing the point. All right. To get a good cut, the wood should be flattened, so the depth will get cut all over of the surface. Isn't flat, it will not get some of the same shallow carves. Right. So absolutely. A lot of people sometimes, oh, I don't want to waste time doing a surfacing tool path before I cut a project, or sometimes they can't do a surfacing tool path. They might char their material, like to get that wood burn look or whatever when they're charring and all. And what I recommended to someone the other day that did that, I said, do a surfacing tool path to ensure that you got a nice parallel plane to your router on your CNC. After you do the surfacing tool path, you can take that board off. You can char it, whatever the case may be, and then, put it back on the table. But a surfacing toolpath is going to, ensure that you're creating a parallel plane to your router, and it's going to make sure that it's going to ensure that that entire cut is consistent throughout the entire cut, and all that good stuff. So, good point there, Mr. Blue Knight. Michael Parrish says hot glue doesn't work very well. Now, uh, I'm not sure exactly, what issue you might have had as far as holding power or this or that, or holding too much and it tears, the MDF out of your wasteboard or whatever the case may be. But and also I guess it kind of depends on the hot glue, right? Hot glue from Michael's craft store might not be it, but I usually use the Gorilla glue sticks. Um, and I used to before I did double side tape and clamps and everything. I mean, hot glue was my go-to for the first year of CNCing, and I love it. But um, I moved my shop around, lost my glue gun, and I never ended up getting another one. I just switched to two-sided tape or clamps, and then of course I built a vacuum press so I can do vacuum clamping as well, which kind of took the place of all of it and things. But I loved hot glue, and it might not work that well for some people, and also kind of the material it depends on, and also yeah, I can understand your point, Michael. But don't don't discount it too much. It was great. And just try a different glue stick maybe, but yeah, no, everybody, things do different things for different people and stuff. Um, but hot glue was my go-to back in the day. Now I use two-sided tape. I use the Sure tape from Lowe's, and or clamping, mechanical clamping, my cam clamps and stuff on my CNC, or I'll use my vacuum pods and stuff. So yeah, but no, Michael, sorry to hear that the hot glue didn't work for you, man. That's one of my favorites. Let's see here. Laney, are you going to be part of the worldwide users group meeting in September of this year? For the Vectric, now I was a presenter at the Vectric conference last year in Denver. I have not received an invitation this year, so I do not think so. I was a presenter last year, but with the COVID thing going on, I don't know if they just haven't, moved forward with that and stuff, or where that, are they holding it in London? Because they probably haven't invited me because they don't know if I can fly to London. But yeah, Vetric, I'll come on over there, boy. Let me know when. But no, I haven't gotten an invitation to this year, so they may already be filled up with presenters. But I was last year. Let's see here. Laney, as Cecil Morrison pointed out, the guy that makes amazing monographs is Big Fish. Yep. If you could look at some of his designs and maybe do something fancy like some of the signs Big Fish made. Yeah, I'll reach out to Big Fish and look at some of his designs. I don't want to steal any of his ideas or anything like that. But I'll see if something inspires me or whatever, and I can do a class on how I would approach a design, not the same as his, but in that realm. But yeah, Big Fish usually is in on the live groups and stuff, so I'll reach out and we'll do that. We will do that. Not a problem. Um, hello, sir. Can you recommend a diamond tip bit for carving on granite? Um, No matter what diamond tip bit you're going to use, Michael, the granite is going to wear it down rapidly. What I would recommend is we do have a diamond tip bit and engraver at the Digital Woodcarver website. It's a 90-degree, uh, 0.2 diameter ball tip bit, diamond tip bit with a spring-loaded holder. The tips are probably about $20 for each replacement and everything. You'd want to have a lot of them on hand if you're going to be doing granite, because granite will eat up some diamond bits. I mean, they've got diamond tip V bits, like on toolstoday.com. I mean, a diamond tip V bit is like, $175. They're not anything to winks at. They're expensive bits, but just a general diamond tip bit, I would kind of recommend ours, just because it's the only one that I've ever used for marble and different things and all. You just gotta have a couple extra tips on hand, because it will that granite's some tough stuff. It will eat right through it. It'll uh it'll dull out those tips in short order. But check out toolstoday.com. Tools, TOOLS, today, TODAY.com, and look at some of their diamond tip bits and things. A little bit pricey, but you know that's a judgment call you'll have to make. But I would check out our diamond tip bit and holder. Our diamond tip bit and holder for the spring-loaded holder and 1 bit tip, it's $75, and then after that, each tip is $20, right? So I've been using Aspire since it turned to V2, to version 10. V2 is TNG, right? Version 10 is Aspire. Yeah, Aspire is great. Let's see here. But would you lose detail? But would you lose detail on? I'm assuming Blue Knight's referring to the V bit, the different angle V bit, because that was the last thing I talked about. No, you wouldn't. Your design is still going to look the same. The cut between the lines and everything is still going to be the same. The only difference is the depth of the cut is going to vary based on that. So in the smaller areas, I may, um, let's turn off the color here. That was an ugly color. I don't know what I was thinking there. And I've got my resolution turned down real low, so it's kind of pixelated. Sorry about that. But even with that 120-degree V bit, I'm getting good depth of cut here. Um, about 3/16, little less than 3/16 and everything. So getting good depth, even that 120-degree V bit. The design still, as far as a V carve, the design still looks the same as it would whether I was using a 60, 90, or whatever bit. But the only difference that's going to vary is because of the angle of the bit. My depth of cut's going to vary, right? So uh, my depth of cut is varying, but I'm not losing any as far as relatively any detail. And hopefully Blue Knight, that's what you're referring to. When doing some 3D carving, would you do a rough cut first? Absolutely, Stephen. Most 3D carving, I'm going to have there's a 3D rough cut and a 3D finish. My ball nose bits, those are my detail bits, right? And I don't want them overworking themselves. So my end mills, those are the workhorses of the CNC shop. So I'm going to use a 1/4-inch end mill or whatever size end mill, depending on the design or the model, to do my rough cut, to hog away that waste material, and then let my detail bits do the finish up work, and work a little lighter so they can focus on the detail instead of removing, bulks of material and stuff. Now, the only time I do not use a rough cut is when the design doesn't call for it. The design is so shallow that a rough cut is impractical. There's no material that's going to get removed by that end mill. Or very little material is going to get removed. Then I'll just go with a straight 3D finish cut. But 98% of the 3D carvings that I do, absolutely a rough cut to hog away that waste material, so my finished bits don't have to work that hard to do the detail work, right? Bum, bum. This is a web-based meeting. Oh, I'm not sure. I haven't been invited to anything, Jeff, so I'm not sure. Vectric will be doing an online user meeting for 3 days, and you can purchase files after the meeting. Oh, that's awesome. That's cool. I haven't heard of that yet. So, uh, obviously, the answer to that question would be no. Or my invitation got lost in the mail. Um, all right. Uh, Edward's on it, boy. I found some of Big Fish's designs on Laney's Facebook group. I'll check them out for sure. I'm not gonna get into them today, Edward, but I'll set up a class for one of them for sure. But I'll look at the Spindle TV user group and look at those designs. And as far as I can share it on screen, what you guys are referring to. Let's go to facebook.com. Oh, Spindle training videos. Yeah, see, ever since that lightning strike, things have just been a little sluggish lately with my internet speed is usually ripping lightning fast. Um, I'm lucky if I'm usually pulling 8 or 900 megabytes a second download, and I'm lucky if I'm pulling 3 or 400 right now, which is still fast, but not my gigablast fast. So the lightning did something. Let's see here. Go to group. I forgot what I was doing there for a minute. Sorry, guys. I got onto a rant about my internet speed. Spindle TV user group. All right. For those of you that don't know, there is a user group on Facebook called the Spindle TV um, Spindle Training Videos, Spindle TV subscribers group. It's such a big picture on that screen. Sorry, hold on a second. Boom. The Spindle TV subscribers group. If you have not asked to join that group and you are a subscriber on the YouTube channel, as long as you're subscribed to the channel, you are allowed into the group, right? And there's a question, a very simple question to get in the group. Are you subscribed to Spindle TV on YouTube? Yes or no? And for those of you that answered no, you're still sitting in the queue. For those of you that said yes, you're in the group. So I only have one requirement. It's the Spindle TV subscribers group for subscribers only, right? So if you're not subscribed, you're not getting in. All right. This is going to take a second. While that's going, I'm going to move on with questions. This is why I didn't want to get into that because I knew it would be slow loading and all. What is Big Fish page? I don't know what Big Fish's page is, but let's close that. What is that? Again, we'll give it a chance to load up. Things have been just super slow, and I'm not happy with it, so I'll move on. Yeah, the worldwide Vectric meeting will be the 25th, 25th, and 26th of September. Awesome, Michael. So there are 2 meetings on the 25th and then the 26th. No, I'm just kidding. 24th, 25th, and 26th of September. Check it out. I'll definitely be checking it out. For sure. All right, let's look at photos. Let's see what some of the people are sharing. There's 17 people that want to join this group, and every one of them answered no to the subscription question. You gotta be subscribed, guys and girls. I mean, that's all I'm asking. Just subscribe to the channel on YouTube and you're in, right? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there's that. Is that, I mean, other than the flourishes and the feathers and the little leaves and the pretty cool stuff, Isn't that what I just made there, Ed? But those are pretty awesome. Yeah, he does a great job. But those are little touches. We can add little flourishes to the design, but that's exactly what we made, right? But I used a Vine monogram. He's using just a standard font. These look great. Kevin Big Fish, love his work. He's a subscriber. But yeah, and you guys are sharing photos in here. You're doing a great job, man. There's a lot of cool projects for those of you that are in the group. The basketball backboard I thought that was pretty slick. That was awesome. I had never thought about that before. It's kind of like a pretty cool like office plaque. I thought that was slick. It's got a little backboard, where they can shoot little paper into the trash bin and stuff. The old man. Let's see if we can zoom in on this one. Uh, Zoom in. Come on. You guys and girls have done a great job on this one. Who did this one? This was. Oh, see, this is what I'm talking about, guys. This is killing me. And look, that's not even the picture that I clicked on. Oh my gosh. All right, let's get that to pop up. I'm telling you that ever since that lightning strike, everything has been acting a little goofy. But hey, William Wallace just has to join the group. I think William Wallace is subscribed. But we'll check. Let's see who did this. Pop up the name so I can give them credit, because that I thought that was just cool as all be it as a 3D model. So yeah, keep sharing your project photos in the group, with other people, have discussions, collaborate, all that wonderful stuff, and all, because it's all in good fun. And Lewis Thomas, I'm pleased. I hope that's that's yours. Yeah, Lewis Thomas. Lewis, great job on that, man. Dirt therapist, mom's dirt therapist. So that's pretty cool. Love that design and all. So yeah, definitely check that out, and we'll go from there. All right. All right. But yeah, those. So of course. All right. Let's get rid of the V car. So you guys. So Edward doesn't say no. That's not what I'm talking about, Laney. I want to do a monogram. That first cut that I did, but Big Fish, Kevin's got some pretty cool, vines in that little, decorative detail. We can absolutely do a class on that, doing a nice decorative monogram sign for sure. That would be a fun project to do. And way to go, Kevin, on your projects. I love them. All right, let's get back. Michael, I knew it was a typo, but I was just messing with you. Let's see here. Is the project like the old man difficult? Okay, so is the project like the old man difficult to do? That's a 3D model cut in a dish. So a simple dish in a 3D model cut. If you find a model similar to that, of the old man, uh, in VCarve Pro or desktop, you can import that file in and create that 3D cut. If you're trying to create it from scratch, like your own drawing, and actually sculpt that would require a spire and all. But no, not a difficult project to do at all. Very straightforward. And we can I've done some 3D modeling projects here. We just did the knife handle a couple weeks ago. But we'll do a modeling project again, showing how to in the different VCarve Desktop Pro and Aspire, how we would bring those models into a project. But just imagine, if you will, let me go into my clip art here, and I'm going to delete this monogram. Even in our clip art that comes with the software and all, if I can, and let's pull this back up full screen. Yeah, my computer, I think a little bit of my computer got zapped. I don't know. It's acting goofy. But even in the clip art, that's within the Vectric software itself, a lot of the models and things, and we'll give it a second to build up. It's really acting crazy. But a lot of the models and stuff show you 3 examples of the model by itself, the model in a dish, the model in a dish, and then the model with a decorative kind of little outline around it. But let's, even if I was doing the standard model, let's say that this horse was the old man. I have a gallery here called domes and dishes, and depending on the angle of the dish or the dome that I wanted to use, I could drag that in to the model, and we'll size it up. And let's go into the 3D view on this. And right now I brought that in as a dome, right? It's a dome, so it's covering the horse. What I want to do is I want to go into, and I'm in VCarve Pro here. I want to go into that dome's properties and turn it from a dome into a dish. Okay. And then I'm going to decrease my dish height. I only need it to be, 1 inch deep. I'm on a big 24-inch by 24-inch board here. Let's take let's close that. Let's take the horse here, the cantering Arabian. Let's turn this up long ways. Let's select our Arabian here and size that up. Hold your shift key. And this Arabian, I want to add this to the dish, and therefore it will follow the contour of the curve of that dish and things, and all. And once I have the model laid out, in the case of that, the model with the old man, it was just an old man, a model of an old man with Father Time or whatever, those tree people that you would see models of on eBay or Etsy. But once the model is laid out, I'm going to add a zero plane to this. That'll give me my surface of material. There we go. So I can see my dish inside my material. And then, 3D rough cut to do the rough cut. And first thing I got to do is set up my material size. So right now my material is only 3/4 of an inch thick, yet my overall model height and thickness and all it from the bottom of that dish to the top of that horse's body is 0.9816. Well, I need to, adjust that size to fit within my material or adjust my material accordingly. Well, I'll adjust to fit in my material. So I'm going to go 0.625 and click apply. The key thing to this is I want my model at the top of the material because I want my router bit to make a nice transition down into that dish. And also I want the model at the top of the material with a 0 gap above the model. And click OK. And then on my rough cut, I'm going to use because I have a 0 plane, that's considered the model. So I don't want to use the material or the model as the boundary. I want to use the selected vector. And the selected vector is going to be the outline that I put around this model. So on my dome and dish here, I'm going to put a boundary around it. And I'm going to use that selected vector there as the boundary. I'm going to do a Z-level raster along the x-axis with the grain of my material and calculate that. And, so we have that rough cut that's going to hog away that waste material and everything. But, with, we have our rough cut, then we have our finish cut, right? And we're using the model or the selected vector as the boundary because the 0 plane is this whole piece of wood right here. And that is considered part of the model. So if I use the model as the boundary, it would want to surface all the way across this. Well, it makes no sense because I'm only, milling that dish area. So my finish cut, again, using the selected vector as the boundary, I'm gonna use a 1/8 inch tapered ball nose, in this case, that'll be fine. Selected vector is the boundary. I'm gonna raster 0 degrees along the x-axis. 90 would be along the y. I'm gonna go along the x, and, we'll calculate that. And, let that, calculate out. Alright, so why is it, Troy says, why is it when I export a file to a PDF and then print it, a lot of the lines are too light to see when printed? It's a good question. So what Troy is referring to is when we have a vector, and let's minimize that, and let's go back into. Sorry about the audio blinking in and out every time I turn my head. Oh, I'm an idiot. Let me just right click on this. I just did an export on a PDF. What was that I did it on? The flag case, I believe it was. Um, Trying to think of the example. All right, let's move that over there. I was kept wondering. I was like, "Where's it at? Where's that?" It was on the other screen. Let's see here. Flag case. We'll open that one up. So, what Troy's referring to is, see how things are. I mean, this is untypical. I got to take. I'm gonna take my computer in for diagnostic. I think that lightning bolt did something to it. I can't blame the lightning. I mean, even though it did wipe out $1,000 worth of equipment that I had to replace, but something's odd. And this computer was connected to that whole system, so I don't know. There's just something weird. Um, so this was the ballast. I don't have really any vectors. Do I have any vectors in here? No. Let's see. We'll use this as an example. Staircase baluster that I did. All right. So what Troy's referring to, if I take these vectors here and I export them out as a PDF, um, I want to export the selected only, uh, default sheet, export the job bounds and all the layers, all visible layers. Click on export. And we'll call this baluster files, and I'm just going to throw it on my desktop, and I'll throw it in the class file folder and hit save. And if I come and open that PDF up, come on, File Explorer. Don't do me wrong. Go to my desktop, class files. Let's see here, baluster. Oops. Baluster files. And if I open that PDF up, again, sorry, everything is real slow. This is, untypical of the actual operation of the computer. Sometimes my internet's slow, but not my computer itself. So it's died. All right. So as you can see here, we have our darker lines and then we have our lighter lines on the contours and things. Why is that? I honestly have no clue, Troy. I really don't. But one of the things that I do when I'm printing it is I convert it to, I print it in black and white, not grayscale or anything like that. And usually it'll bring out those lines. But uh, that doesn't necessarily, uh, you know, that's not necessarily the best answer for it, right? But why it shows up, and Jesus, everything is like an active. God, now just to get a file open. Um, why that does that, why it only shows the lines and not the curves and contours. If you notice on a majority of it, if we zoom in, where's my zoom here? Zoom, 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 zoom. Come on. Notice that the dark areas are only the lines, not the curves, right? All the lines are solid black. All the curves, radiuses, contours, and things, those are, um, you know, gray and white. And you say, well, wait a minute, there's a couple of lines there, Laney. No, those have a slight angle to them. If they were a straight line, they'd be, dark. But I don't know. No, actually, no, I just made myself a liar. These are lines here. I know that because I drew the damn thing. Those are straight lines. There's no curve or contour down here. So now why it selects some and not the others? I don't know. I do not know. That might be a good question for me to ask Vectric, right? So, uh, you know, I'll have to ask them, what the deal is with that. But usually, because it is a grayscale, usually if we change the print quality to black and white, might come out, fairly decent. It's still going to be lighter than our big black areas here. But I honestly, Troy, I don't know the answer, but I just wanted to show everybody what Troy was referring to. I don't know why it does that, what the particular reason behind it is. I thought it was just the lines, but no, there's lines down at the bottom of the design that aren't showing up. So why it picks randomly some areas and not others? No clue. No clue. All right, let's get back to here, and we'll preview that finish cut while we're talking. But we've got our finish cut, and so that finish cut is going to be a nice transition from the top of the board down into that dome. And whoever asked about rough cuts, this is why I do rough cuts, so that finish bit has very little material to remove. It can just focus on clearing out that material and working on that detail. I want my end mill, my workhorses, no pun intended with the horse on the screen, but my workhorses, my end mills, to do the heavy lifting. Do that rough cutting and all. Let's see here. I select all the vectors, copy, then copy all to a new layer, and then make all those layers dark blue. Then it works all right. There you go. So you found a workaround for that. That's good. So basically saying, he takes all of his vectors, and he copies them to a new layer, turn that layer to a dark blue, and then they come out all right. Pretty cool. So basically copy to a new layer, and in that color, he's using kind of a dark blue. So that way, when you're looking at that layer, they come out. And also, maybe by having it selected, maybe that does something, right? So let's see here. Layer 2. We'll kind of do a side-by-side comparison. So we'll have a black layer here, nothing selected. file export as a PDF. All the select the here, hold on a second. Yeah, layer 2. I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, what layer am I on? Sorry, export PDF. Don't select that. File export PDF. It automatically selects the vectors when you open it, so it automatically selects that. So yeah, maybe changing it to blue helps, right? So do that. Good call. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're at 9:20. We're going to go another 10 minutes or so on Q&A. Why export as a PDF? That's another good follow-up. So just recently, like at 9, was it 9 or 9.5 that they finally gave us the ability to export as a PDF? Blue Knight, the main reason for this, the main reason I use it is because most big companies, let's say for instance a glass company, when they need a pattern that they're cutting out for me, they prefer that to be in a PDF format. Just like when I send my shirts for printing T-shirts and all, they want the design in PDF format and everything. But like if I was doing a river table and instead of using epoxy, I use river glass, and I will send my vectors for that pattern. I will send them export them as a PDF to send them over to the glass company, and then the glass company will use that PDF to cut the parts out, the glass piece out, and then that way that piece is going to fit my part perfectly. But as a PDF, most of those large companies and everything, large print companies and things like that, they prefer working with a PDF document. So that would be one of the main reasons why, for me, why export is a PDF. And you know, number 2 is I print out as a PDF when I'm laying out, blueprints and stuff. If I need to take a cut sheet, if I've got my parts laid out, like that baluster file and everything. If I wanted to throw measurements on here, in the design, if I wanted to throw some measurements on it, some dimensions and things, I can export those out as a PDF, take it out to my workshop, and I've got, like a miniature blueprint, for my cut list and stuff, right? Right. So that would be the main reasons for a PDF. But mostly it is being able to export those files to a big print company, or whatever. Um, let's see here. Could it be because that was last toolpath selected when you made the PDF? I don't know, Tom. I don't think it has anything to do with the tool path. As far as the vectors, but like you saw when I exported it out as a vector, it automatically selects those vectors. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what the reason is. I'd have to ask Vectric and kind of get their input on as to why it does that. How does the end mill know how deep to cut? The end mill, like on a rough cut, how does it know how deep to cut? Because in the 3D rough cut, we've given it a parameter here, the machining allowance. So basically, anything from the top of my material down to my model, leaving 40 thousandths of an inch of material above the finished model, so that I don't want my end mill coming right on and carving my model. So I'm going to leave a skin of 40 thousandths of an inch of material, which is not really a skin, it's a little under a 16, that my finish bit has to remove when it comes. So based on this parameter here, the machining allowance, the end mill knows to cut from 0, my Z0, which is the top of my material, down to my model, leaving a skin of 40 thousandths of an inch. And if we look at the depth of the model, how it knows how deep to cut is if we look here, that model thickness is 0.625, and the model Z plane is 0.004. So it's going to be 0.6254 is the total depth of cut. And the it's going to leave 40 thousandths, 0.04 So it's going to cut down to that 0.6254 minus 0.04, which is 5 from 0 is 5, 6, 5, 12, 4, 8. So 0.585 of material. That's the depth of cut. It does the math for me, right? It does the math. And all, but it's based on your model thickness and your machining allowance in the rough cut, right? Your machining allowance. And then, of course, it's only going to cut down to where the 1/4 inch bit can fit, right? So that's how it knows how deep to cut. Ba-da-ba-bum. If you print that file, all the lines print to the same darkness. Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah, but why export to PDF just to print? One, blueprints to take out to my shop. Number two, to export that file to a glass company or cabinet company or whatever, I need, so they can cut other parts and things out for me to the exact same size. And they require a PDF file. Okay. My computer is not hooked up to a printer. I put them on a flash drive. PDF is full scale. There you go. Yep, I meant vectors, but you just checked that. Yes, yeah, yeah, Tom, vectors, exactly. I knew what you meant. I knew toolpath was a kind of a verbal typo, but I knew exactly what you meant. Do you ever use rest machining on something like that, Horse? Well, rest machining is only available in Aspire software. And if the toolpath called for it, then I would do rest machining, to, optimize the cut and, help reduce some of the runtime and things like that. I can't do rest machining in VCarve Pro or Vectric VCarve Desktop. But if I was in Aspire and if the design called for it, then I would do it. It doesn't call for it in this design. There's not enough detail for rest machining. I mean, you could still do rest machining with a smaller bit to do around the horse and the mane and things like that. But, for a project this size, I just use a 16th inch end mill, and, my time would be much less than someone doing a finish cut, a rest machining cut, and a rough cut. I could just do my rough cut and my finish cut and finish quicker with the same results as someone doing it as a rest machining. So there's a time and a place for rest machining. And this particular project's not the time or the place. It would be adding time. It wouldn't be helping me any. It wouldn't be benefiting me any. Let's see here. All right, Troy, you have a good night. I appreciate you. Have a great night. And I'm gonna do the same thing. We're about to sign out here. So let's see here. Michael, I'm gonna grab Mr. Michael Casey here. Where do you get clip art at? So now there's two forms of clip art, right? The models are in the Vectric software referred to as clip art. There's some great places to get clip art models. Designandmake.com, eBay, Etsy, Turbo Squid, cgtrader.com. There's quite a few places. Thingiverse. But as far as clip art, like image clip art for tracing and stuff, google.com. Let's see here. Everyone click that thumbs up button. That's the best statement of the night. No, I'm just kidding. They're all been great statements. Great questions, guys and girls. I appreciate you. And hopefully this was helpful. I mean, it was a lot of good questions. This is the most active Q&A that I've had in a long time. The last couple of Q&As have been very, not a lot of people are participating in the questions, right? They're not asking a whole lot of questions and stuff. Usually that's because I'm designing something at the same time, kind of just doing like a little design as I'm answering questions and stuff. And usually people are they're most likely paying attention to what I'm doing in the design and not really asking questions and all. But this time I didn't do a design. We did the center finder, circle center finder, but you guys rocked it out with a lot of great questions. So I try to do these Q&As, once a month or so, every couple of classes to break things up, but also because, we can't get to everything in one night, right? So I try to do this and all from time to time. So great on you guys. Great participation with tonight's classes. Great questions. There was not a question that I didn't think was not great or anything like that. They were all awesome and they were perfect. So good on you all. Hopefully, hey, Crisscross Crafts, he made it. What did I miss? You missed a Q&A, bud. We had just a simple Q&A with some great questions and answers. Definitely check out the video later. And, it's 2.5 hours of cool, 2 hours, 15 minutes of pretty cool questions and some good answers and stuff. So thanks for joining anyway, Chris. I appreciate you, man, as always. Um, let's see here. Thank you guys. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. And yeah, Blue Knight, you spread the word, brother. I appreciate that. But yeah, if you have if you have not, if you are subscribed to this channel, if you are subscribed and you're a subscriber of the Spindle TV on YouTube, and you have not asked to join the Spindle TV subscribers user group, do so and answer the question yes, right? And I'll let you in. But there's all the people that you get to know in the chat rooms here. The chat while we're doing. A lot of them are over in the Spindle TV group. So it's a great way to continue conversations. Collaborate on things, share project ideas, and all that wonderful stuff. Build yourself a little Spindle TV community over there. Yeah, more power to it. Yay for that. We like to party. All right. Until next time, everybody. I'm gonna let y'all go for tonight. Have a great night. See you soon.